And that was the season, folks. Arsenal have lost against PSG 2-1 at the Parc des Princes, and now Arsenal are out of the semi-finals of the Champions League, and Arsenal's season has come to a miserable end. It was absolutely a horror show watching that match. I thought for the first 10 to 20 minutes Arsenal were lively, they looked great, they were attacking, they were doing everything that I thought they would, and then when the first half came and ended with Fabian Ruiz's goal, it did knock the wins out of Arsenal, and in the second half they just looked lethargic, they just looked slow, and you know what, it just felt like they put everything they had into that first half and they completely ran out of steam. I don't know what the tactics were in that second half. I don't know why they just tried to go and pass around the back when you had 90% of the team on the other side of the pitch and there was literally no way of getting the ball to them. I was sad for a few players. Declan Rice, I know that he got that free kick and gave it to PSG and they ultimately scored, but there were other times in the game where I thought he really did put in a lot of effort. I thought Saliba, although he made a few mistakes here and there, I thought he was the main defender. He was monumental and he was just really covering for everyone from what I was seeing. Whenever I saw PSG have the ball, he was around everywhere. Miles Lewis Skelly, I thought this was a game that was out of his depth. I just thought that he was making too many mistakes and maybe he was a bit too emotional, and I think that with that penalty, which nobody saw coming, it was just very unfortunate with what happened to him, and I hope he doesn't lose his confidence. I hope that he can just take this as a learning curve and move forward. But if I were just to talk about the rest of the team, I know that people have been saying that Partey, they wanted him to come back, and he was making some good interceptions in the game, but there are times where he just makes these mistakes, and these mistakes can be so big where essentially PSG got that second goal and then the game was absolutely gone. And if we were to look up top, I thought in the beginning Martinelli looked okay. I think he was great that he was going against Hakimi and trying to dribble past him, but it was just one of those things where he kept his head down, he could barely get ahead of him. I thought Mikel Merino was not really getting at the end of things, and Saka, I didn't think Saka was that great this game, and that was probably because he was marked heavily throughout the entire game. I thought that when Mendes got a yellow card, I thought that maybe it would be a field day for Saka and he'd be able to take him on, but PSG had a plan for that and they knew what they were doing. And Arsenal, it just looked like from their tactics, these were tactics that I could have made at home. I mean, giving the ball to Partey every throw in and just completely just throwing it in as much as you possibly could like it's the 90th minute. I mean, not one of them was able to get through, and it just feels like that Arsenal are allergic to playing the ball down the middle. I mean, it just was take the balls to the side, cross it in, take the ball to the side, cross it in, take the ball to the side, cross it in, and no one was getting at the end of it. They weren't able to get any headers, and through that way PSG defended very well. They knew what they had to do, they had a game plan, and they kept Arsenal completely out of the game. And credit to them, because they're going to the Champions League final post the Mbappe era, and they could really give Inter Milan a very good game. And in my recent video I talked about a certain player that who I really expected something from, who I wanted to really stand up in this game, and unfortunately he's disappointed me today. I thought that the commentators constantly said that he was doing quite well off the ball and he was really putting up a lot of pressure, but he does that nearly every game. I mean, you can find a lot of players in this entire world just to tell them to run at players and put pressure on. It's not what you do off the ball, it's what you do on the ball. That is where your true quality lies. Yes, what you do off the ball shows your work rate, but when you're on the ball and you can provide that magic, that's where we can really tell who is a top player and who's world class and who can really provide something for the team. And unfortunately, Martin Ødegaard today, he had one shot which Donnarumma saved, and Donnarumma was playing very spectacularly, especially in the first half. But after that point, I saw him probably one more time on the ball. I think this was also in the first half, where he had a shot on goal but he decides to pass it as he usually does, and essentially he went missing as well. And I'm really disappointed with Martin Ødegaard, because I wanted to be positive and I wanted to be enthusiastic and I really wanted him to do well. But this is another game where now that Arsenal are out of all competitions and there's no chance of winning any trophies whatsoever this season, now there's big questions that need to be asked from everyone in this entire club, whether it's the players, whether it's the manager, whether it's the backroom staff, whether it's the owner, whether it's the board of directors, because all of those people have made so many big mistakes and so many calamitous errors where it's literally caused Arsenal to lose everything this season. And even potentially when Arsenal have to go to Anfield, they have to possibly give a guard of honor there, which is going to be another painful sight for Arsenal fans. I still remember the guard of honor we had to give in United back in around 2013, and that was painful in itself. And the thing is, I don't know how many lessons Arsenal need to learn over the last how many years to just get over the line. I don't get it. I don't know what is stopping them from getting over the line. And the thing is that when you really look at football, it's not that complicated. And I think with Mikel Arteta and the backroom staff and everyone, they just complicate football way too much, because I am sick and tired of hearing the commentators say Arsenal need a poacher, they need a striker, and they've been mentioning this nearly every single game this entire season, and I'm tired of it. And that is why this summer, this is last chance saloon for so many of these players, the manager. This is the last chance saloon, and for me, that's for the rest of the fans. But I already know how the story is going to end. I think with Mikel Arteta, I'm not convinced anymore. I'm not going to be following this bandwagon where I'm just going to believe every single word that he says and this and that, because now we're in the results business, and Arsenal need to get results and they need to win things quickly. And the only way they can do that is to start again next season, because that is literally the only choice that they have, because there's nothing else to play for this season except by getting 4 points in 3 games against Newcastle, Liverpool and Southampton. And it's strange that Arsenal have made a complete mess out of it, but there's also a possibility that Manchester City, as poor as they've been, that they can get ahead of Arsenal. And although City have spent 200 million and got a good amount of players, it still shouldn't happen that City get ahead of Arsenal in the Premier League. But just putting the Premier League to the side, this Champions League was a dream for a lot of Arsenal fans, because to go and beat Real Madrid is not something you can do every year. I mean, we've only faced them 2-3 times in the last 20-30 years, and we managed to beat them and not lose to them a couple of those times. But where is the guarantee that you're going to get a result like that again? And where is the guarantee that when you play against a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich or an Inter Milan in this stage, where you're going to have a team that's good enough to compete against all of those sides? Because I guarantee you now, there comes a point in time with a lot of these players where you play long enough, and then as you look around and you're just like, why the hell are we not winning anything? And then they decide, you know, maybe it's the time to leave and go to another club. And that's why a lot of people are scared about William Saliba, they're scared about Gabriel, they're scared about Bukayo Saka, maybe, because a lot of these players can just turn around and say, you know what, I want to leave and go to a different club because they're not winning anything here. And that's why this summer is going to be extremely important, in the sense where, what are they going to do with Mikel Arteta? What are they going to do with the signings? If it were up to me, if we had to make certain signings, I'd definitely get a striker. That's everyone that's been saying that, whether it's Gyökeres or Isak or whoever the hell it is, just get a goddamn striker, and then focus on trying to rebuild some parts of the squad and make sure you have a good enough bench. I can't believe, again, we went through an entire game where Ethan Nwaneri still hasn't come on before the 85th minute. He didn't even come on today. And when Ødegaard looked completely spent, when he looked like he ran as much as he could and he was barely getting the ball, you still didn't decide to put Ethan Nwaneri on. And that is another thing that I'll criticize Mikel Arteta on. His substitutions today have been too far and too late. They've been way too late to make. He's been way too late to make them. And this is just another failure of a season. That is what this season is. It's the failure. It's not progress. It's not a step up or anything like that. This isn't project part 4.5. This is project failure at this point. And next season, I don't know what these guys are going to do. I don't know how Arsenal are going to improve, because you know what? There's been a lot of opportunities this season, especially with Manchester City going down, especially with Arsenal getting into the semi-finals of the Champions League and the Carabao Cup. Do I remind you of that as well? And the thing is that if you're not able to win trophies, then you're unable to make a culture of winning, and you need to win somewhere. And if you're not winning anywhere, and even if it is the tin pot or the small trophies, then I don't know how you think you can possibly go out there and automatically just win the Champions League. Life doesn't work like that. Football doesn't work like the way that Arsenal think it does, in terms of not going out there and getting a striker, or trying to make certain players play 10 different positions, when clearly confuses the hell out. It will confuse the hell out of anyone to play multiple different positions and do this crazy ass tactics, especially when there are no results and nothing to show at the end of it. And that is the biggest point of it all. There's nothing to show in the 5 years of this reign that Arsenal can look at and say, this is what we were able to get. And I'm not talking about individual wins, I'm talking about trophies, because that is what makes players stay at the club and fight on to try and win even bigger trophies. And with Mikel Arteta, I just thought that he looked far too relaxed for me at the end of the game. But if it were me, and if I had to go to a stadium, I'd make sure I make my voice heard. And I'd also encourage a lot of you who are listening to this video to make your voice heard and to say that this can't continue like this any longer, because we're, as fans, we may be people who just sit on chairs, or maybe we're not guys who have the highest coaching qualifications, but football is a very simple game. And maybe that's just me, but this has gone far enough, and there needs to be some major adjustments come the summer. And with Mikel Arteta, I don't care if he stays or if he goes or whatever and this forth, there needs to be changes that happen, because in order to go through the next step, we can't be going through the same old BS. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. Well done, PSG. Arsenal, there were some good moments, but at the end of the day, they look completely ineffective, and PSG showed what a real European giant looks like in the Champions League. Anyhow, that's me at the end of this video. Bye.